Welcome to this video. This is a video about how to solder, especially if you've never done it before. I recommend to do this first having some wire that you can be able to solder, having some wire strippers so you can be able to strip the wire, something to hold the wire. I just homemade a clip, but you can go out and buy fixtures that will hold wire as well, a soldering iron, and some solder that can either look like it's in a container like this or get a spool of solder. It's all the same. So what I'm going to do first is use the wire strippers to strip the wire, and this is 16 gauge wire. So I fit it into the 16 slot, pull it through, and it gives me the stranded portion of the wire. I'll do that same thing on another set of wire. There we go. Now there are a few methods to soldering, and I'm going to give this a little bit more. There we go. There are a few methods to soldering. Some people take the wire strands and they fit them together just like that and solder it. And that can be a good way to hold it. Other people will take the ends of the wire and twist them together like this. This is called, usually by some, a pigtail splice. And this can be kind of a weak joint, and it can be also hard to insulate that end there. So I don't recommend the pigtail splice as much as other methods, and my preferred method is to simply make an X half and half and wrap the strands around each other just like that. And that produces a nice strong hold, so I'm going to clip that in so I don't have to hold it. And we can begin the actual soldering process with a wet sponge. I'll just wipe the tip off. This is kind of a broken tip on the soldering iron, but it still works just fine. So I'm going to take my solder and do what's called tin the tip. Let's get a little solder on that tip. And the idea behind soldering is I want to get this joint hot enough that I can melt solder on it. But holding a plain old metal tip on there isn't very efficient. So I use this solder to transfer heat from the soldering iron into this joint right here. And so I'll just sit here and let it warm up. It can take a few seconds to warm up and sometimes a few minutes. So I'll just let it gather heat. And then when I'm ready to solder, I do not touch the tip with this solder. I simply touch the joint. So easy, it's almost hard. And there you have a solder joint. It can also be helpful to take some heat shrink that you can buy and slide it over the solder joint, and then simply apply heat to the joint and it will shrink around there to insulate and protect that solder joint. I'd like to show you a little closer up what this soldering looks like. So I'm going to take my tinned tip and simply hold it on that joint, allowing heat to transfer. And once the joint starts heating up, I'll just lightly tap. You can see solder transferring right into that joint. That's exactly what we want. So easy, it's almost hard. The finished product of soldering is a joint that is really strong and that won't break under pressure. Soldering is excellent for most applications. It has been known to crack if you're soldering underneath the car hood, for instance. So it can be susceptible to some thermal fluctuations over a period of years, but you can almost always solder something and not have to worry about it for the rest of the life of the wire. It is an extremely strong hold. Hope this video was helpful. If it was, please subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.